Recording now.
Sorry, turn it off. Sorry, Madam President, would you mind turning off the recording for a sec, please? Lee, I'm sorry, I can't find the title of your speech. My apologies. You're on mute, Lee.
I'll text you now, Madam President. Or Madam. Close your eyes momentarily and transport yourselves back to the year 1987. This is the year when Johnny Logan wins the Eurovision Song Contest for the second time with the song What's Another Year. Stephen Roach is the winner of the Tour de France, and Dirty Dancing is one of the biggest blockbusters on the big screen. In January 1987, a couple, Peter and Ita, are overjoyed to learn they are expecting their second child. The conception, pregnancy, and birth are all perfectly normal, and their son, born 9 months later, is born 2 weeks late and at a healthy weight. Within a few months, however, they realize their child isn't like their other son or his peers. It would be 15 months before this child begins to crawl, 18 months before he learns to walk, and it would not be until he was 36 months old that he completed his first full sentence. When he commences school, his concerned teacher suggests that he may have DYSP or AXIA, dyspraxia, an incurable neurological condition that delays, reduces, and limits development of the brain. Now open your eyes to the reality. That child is now a man called Lee Patrick Bernard Maguire. As this week is Dyspraxia Awareness Week, I will now open the floor for the next 19 minutes to answer any questions you may have on the negative consequences and positive influences that being diagnosed with dyspraxia has had on my life. I am one of 1.1 million Irish people who have a disability, and we account for over 22% of the Irish population. Throughout my life, I have obsessively researched dyspraxia to learn more about the condition and how it impacts on me. I am happy to take the first question. Eileen, would you like to ask the first question?
Lee, thanks for sharing that with us, and it's something that I'm aware of, that condition that you have. Is there a dyspraxia society in Ireland, and are you a member of it?
Yes, to answer the first part of your question, there is indeed an organisation called Dyspraxia Ireland. It's based in the Carmichael Centre in Dublin 7. I am indeed a member of it, and I have been a motivational speaker on behalf of the association for approximately the last 10 years, where I regularly raise awareness of dyspraxia through newspaper articles, speeches, videos, and also my travel blog. So,
Oh, amazingly. Fair play to you. Well done.
thank you, Anne. The next person I see on my screen is Geraldine. Would you like to ask a question?
Thank you. Yeah, the only other person I'd heard, a lady I work with, and she'd said that her son had dyspraxia. And what she mentioned about him is that he would stand in front of an audience, no problem, and give a speech, just like you're doing. And I was just wondering, does it limit communication in any way, or is it a strength in that?
It does indeed affect your communication skills, not only in the sense that it delays your ability to communicate, but yes, dyspraxic do find it difficult to communicate on a one-to-one basis or with their peers. But if you put them in front of an audience, yeah, they can find it less challenging. I have a dyspraxic friend, for example, who is a teacher in China, so he has no issues speaking in front of people. As part of my work with the Dyspraxia Association, I've spoken in front of 350 people. Whereas if I was in a bar or in a social setting and I was trying to talk one-to-one to a person, I would absolutely freeze up. So I think it is a challenge that dyspraxic people face. Funnily, you mentioned your colleague's son, 3 times as many males as females have dyspraxia. So, we're not, it's not unusual that, of another male with dyslexia. So thank you for that question, Eileen and Geraldine. And now move on to Michael. Michael, you're probably aware of dyslexia from your
Hey,
teaching
how are you?
career, but
Yes, I was actually going to jump in there. Yeah, I've quite a few students over the past, and I would even reflect back on students in my own classroom as a student as well. Very few supports were put in place back then, and it was something that more or less the parents provided the support for the student for. Whereas in the classroom now, there's quite a few things we have. We have scaffolding. I would use Microsoft OneNote. So, say for instance, here if I was giving a class, what would happen was I'd have my iPad and I would have OneNote and I do all the writing. So the student that has dyspraxia and listen to students as well, they will have dyscalculia and dyslexia as well. Sometimes they have two or three of them, and by taking my notes, they can access the notes at home through a device. It takes the pressure off them. They can sit there and absorb it. Yeah, there's such an amount of resources out there as well. We have an SNA as well, we're moving around. But like there's little small things, organization at the desk. If I'm walking by the desk, I might just pause for a little second and help them, organize the desk. Because what happens is you can see a maths book, then there's a mathematical box, then there's a pencil case, and they're trying to write on top of everything. And there's such a sensory overload, so there is, with a lot of students. As well, you try to be as practical as possible. If we have resources, like that algebra is quite abstract, we'll try and break it down so they can use GeoGebra and they can see the x isn't just 5, x is the x-intercept, which is 5. Do you know what I mean? They can see it on a graph in front of them. Now, all that aside, would you on a human level have any other advice for how a student, or sorry, how a teacher might approach a student who sometimes is a little bit apprehensive about coming to a maths class, how they can make it a little bit more inviting for them?
One suggestion, well, I have a number of suggestions, but my first suggestion would be for assessments, be it a class test or a Christmas or summer test, try and provide additional time for that student to complete the examination.
Yeah.
Because as I said, it is reduced, limited, and delayed brain development. So it will take them longer to figure out and to write their responses to the question. So yes, absolutely additional time. The fact that you're providing written notes to the students with dyslexia is absolutely invaluable. Because that will ensure that they receive the full amount of information that they need, and then they can concentrate on what you're saying rather than just concentrating on taking down the notes. Limiting the need to multitask. So yeah, it's additional time. Continue to provide notes for them, and also maybe encourage them that if they don't understand something, to check in with them regularly. They may be too shy to ask a question in front of the class, so maybe just if you can still ask them to stay back every so often, or review their situation on a one-to-one basis in front of
Yeah,
rather than in
touch
front
base
of the
with them
peers.
and yeah, and it's always trying to develop that personal relationship too, just even when in and out the door if they play football, or if they just ask them how they're getting on, if there's a particular jacket that they're wearing, the when that they get it, and different things like that.
Yes,
Thanks a million,
exactly.
like.
No problem. Brenda, your question, please.
Lee, thanks very much for your speech. What type of events have you spoken about dyspraxia at?
Well, as well as in Toastmasters for the last where are we now, 13 years. I've spoken at a number of events organized by the Dyslexia Association. So Dyslexia Association would organize a number of events for parents, professionals, and individuals with dyslexia. So as I said earlier, in 2017, they had an annual summit entitled Dyslexia and Its Consequences, which was attended by 350 delegates in Athlone. And I was asked to be one of the voices of experience at that, where I shared my trials and tribulations with dyslexia up until that point. But there's been many more trials and tribulations since that happened, so that could definitely do with a sequel at some stage. Does that answer your question, Brenda? Perfect. I'll move on to Lachlan. How's it going, Lachlan?
All good, Lee. Thank you very much for sharing your story. And I think just hearing about how you're kind of using that as, inspiration and kind of trying to kind of be a voice for other people who also have dyspraxia and kind of giving that guide to maybe helping other people. I think that's very, very great. I suppose my question is in around if there was ever a time in your life where you felt, maybe even the first time where you felt that dyspraxia was a real struggle, but a kind of key moment or a key turning point had happened to make you realize that it's actually maybe an opportunity where you get up and talk about it and help other people. Was there ever like a moment or a story that you can tell us about a time where you felt, I suppose, proud of yourself because you kind of stepped up and fought against it?
Um, Absolutely, Lachlan. Due to my dyspraxia, and I also have issues with my eyes, I was told quite simply it would be highly unlikely I would ever be able to drive. And as a result of that, I had to attend the low vision clinic in the Royal Victoria Hospital in Belfast, with a unfortunately named Dr. Jackson, who informed me, yes, I would be highly unlikely I would be able to drive. On an annual basis from the age of 5 or 6 till I was in my late 20s, I attended the clinic on an annual basis, and they got out the Snellen chart, which most of you will know as the letters they use to test your vision. So each year they would test my eyes, and I would be told each year that, yeah, it was still highly unlikely I'd ever be able to drive. About 2010 or 2011, if memory serves me correct, my eyesight actually improved by 2 lines on this chart. So Dr. Jackson said, yes, absolutely, you can, attempt to learn how to drive, but it will still be highly unlikely you'll ever drive. So my father and I was like, oh, sure, we'll give driving a go, and we decided to give driving a go in um, a manual car, which is highly challenging for the best of us, never mind if you're neurodivergent. So in May of 2015, I told no one other than immediate family that I was going to sit my driving test. My driving test, or my first driving test, was an absolute disaster, but I actually informed at the end of the driving test that I had indeed passed my driving test on my first attempt. So once I recovered from the shock of that and recovered from the 3-day hangover of the celebration, coincidentally, I had an appointment with Dr. Jackson the following week. And Dr. Jackson usually started his consultations with the following question: what have you done in the last year? Well, Dr. Jackson, I passed my driving test last week. Dr. Jackson replied, we don't need to see you anymore. And I was like, Dr. Jackson, I don't need glasses to see you anymore. I've got my driving license. I'm off around the world. So that was probably the greatest achievement, Lachlan, with dyspraxia.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Lachlan. Miss Conley.
You're of a gregarious nature. You kept on going there. You fought the fight. Well done. When actually were you diagnosed with dyspraxia?
In my kitchen. No, I was diagnosed with dyspraxia when I was about 5 years of age, because teachers realized whenever I started school, things weren't quite right. I was slower at learning. I'm looking at a page of lines here. I could barely write in a straight line. My letters were either above it or below it. They call that limited spatial awareness. So I was sent to an occupational therapist in Enniskillen of the name Margaret Moore, wherever she is now, shout out. And it would have been her as an occupational therapist who would have diagnosed me with dyspraxia, probably following a referral a referral from my family GP. But as that's almost 33 years ago, Pauline, I'm not exactly sure how or when I was diagnosed with it, but I believe it was um, in a situation something like that. But I know it was when I was 5 years of age, so I was actually lucky that I was young when I was diagnosed, because then supports could be put in place. And at this stage, I don't know life without dyspraxia. So yeah, I think that's how the story started. So
Well, you're managing it very well. Yeah, fair play to you. Would
I had
dyspraxia would dyspraxia be considered to be in the same vein as dyslexia and dysprasia and all those other things?
yes, it would be under the same family as I haven't heard of dysplasia. There's a new one for me. Dyscalcia, dyspraxia, dyslexia. Yes, they're all on the neurodivergency spectrum. Because it's Dyspraxia Awareness Week, we had a webinar today in the civil service that was on neurodiversity. And even when I was at this talk, I could see elements of other conditions that I haven't been diagnosed with, but according to Dr. Google, I have, such as ADHD, ADD, Tourette's. I think there is other things, but I think I'll avoid the additional diagnosis because we might be here for another 20 minutes if I talk about that. So, yes.
Congratulations, you're surviving it well. Anyway, fair play to you. You're
Thank you.
an example to everybody. Thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you very much, Miss Connolly. Ladies and gentlemen, I expected that there would be more people here, so I do believe we've got a bit more time left on the clock, don't we, Madam Tyler?
We do indeed. We have
Hey, can I
about
come in there one quick question, right? I
Uh,
did have a guy last year, and I
so,
don't have.
sorry, Michael, just before you do, how much time do we have left, Eileen?
we have 5 minutes to the 20 minutes. It's 15 minutes now.
Perfect. Well, then I might be able to take another question or two from each person. So, Michael, fire ahead.
It's just a really short question. I had a guy
Go
last
for it.
year who had dyscalculia and dyspraxia, and his writing was really bad. And I offered him most of the supports that, well, nearly all the supports I talked about there, but he wouldn't use any of them. He wouldn't. He was very like I'm not sure was it a case of that his acceptance that he was just going to be weak at maths, or I'm not sure what it was. And we worked with the parents. Now I have him again coming into the class in the next wee while because he's moving to my class. He's moving laterally across, and I want to build that relationship. Now, what do you think I can do again to maybe a student who's accepted maybe that he's not going to be any good at maths, but I need to get him to see that he's not going to be Einstein, just the same as I'm probably not, but we can always reach our potential. You know what I mean?
This is more a question back at yourself, Michael, but would you be willing or would you be in a position to offer them additional assistance with maths? Would you be willing to take them during lunchtime, for example, for extra
Well, I have a
classes or
maths
after?
club. I actually have a maths club, so I have.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've actually said it to his parents at the parent teacher meeting, and he said no to me outright, and then he said he wouldn't come near us in school as well to me, or sorry, to them at home. So
Right.
it is there for him, like, and there's no
Mm.
problem at all. Take him 20 minutes any lunchtime, but I'll definitely what I'll do is maybe more a one-to-one. I'll talk to him about maybe doing something along them lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely hated maths, Michael. So the fact that I'm talking to a maths teacher is quite traumatic. But even if you can try and make maths somewhat fun, maybe there
That's the
might be some
challenge.
element of there might be some
I'm only
element of
joking.
maths.
I'm only joking.
Yeah, I know it is. But there might be some element of maths that you can make more interesting or more fascinating for him. Could you help him develop, with statistics, maybe you could develop a pie chart and how he uses his time, or, make
Yeah,
maths relevant to his life, or, help him start tracking his spending or something. Just make maths more applicable to daily life. Like I don't know when I last used algebra, but I record my
yeah,
expenditure. You can make maths, more relevant in everyday
yeah.
life for him so that he can see how he can use it beyond your classroom.
It's a dreaded statement. I get it. When am I ever going to use this again?
Yeah,
Your junior,
exa-
sir.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. We do still have a bit more time, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm happy, gregarious enough to take any additional questions.
Lee, can I ask you, did you mention at one stage that sometimes people with dyspraxia can have difficulty understanding if somebody is saying something in humor or whether they mean it, and things can be taken up the wrong way?
Yeah, absolutely. The dyspraxics can take things literally. For example, whenever I was in secondary school, I was quite naive, should we say, of situations because went to an all boys primary school. So, for example, a girl told me to get a bottle of cup on or take a bottle of cup on, and I thought this was something you buy in the supermarket. So quite simply, things that are said, I take literally, or if someone says go and jump, well, I do the high jump. So yeah, you do take things literally, and I think you also take things very personally. A supervisor in a former source of employment told me that I was lucky dyspraxia wasn't a disturbing condition. I found that highly derogatory and quietly offensive. I don't know whether she was expecting me to be tearing my hair out or going around beating people up or whatever because I couldn't control my anger. But yeah, certain people say certain things that can be quite offensive to people with. I don't even like using the term disability, but they can use quite offensive term or the old cliche, you don't look disabled. What, because I'm not in a wheelchair or I don't have a guide dog, I'm sorry, assistance dog. So yeah, but as this is in engaging humor, I do try and see the humor in having dyspraxia. I think that has served me well, and yes, as I'm 38 on Sunday, it's a good time to reflect on the last 33 years. So we have a red light, but if anyone has an urgent question, I'm happy to take it, but I'm sure we have to wrap things up before I lose my voice, because I am back on for topics in like 2 minutes. Anyone else? Coaches are like me, 2 minutes ago, speechless. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to share my experiences with you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you were too embarrassed to ask in this call, but I'm always only a message away or a call away. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Lee, for your very personal presentation. We'll take 2 minutes to give feedback to Lee on his Q&A session.
That's over 2 minutes, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster. And our next section of the meeting is our topic session, and this will be led by our topics master, who is Lee McGuire. Lee.
Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster. I don't think 2 minutes is long enough to get my voice back, but we'll give it a go. Before I do that, I just thought I would let you all know that that is now level 4, also completed in my pathway. Thank you. Before I do introduce the topics, and I still don't have a voice, Pauline just has a short announcement to make. Pauline, do you mind doing it now while I try to get my voice and get my topics?
Okay, folks. We are a very privileged club in Monaghan Toastmasters because we are the home club of an area director, none other than Lee McGuire, who is now the area director in Area 2. I think you'll all agree that we're very privileged to have him, and we wish him well this year in his endeavours to whatever level there. I don't know if you can go much further, Lee. You're rightly up the ladder as it is. But this is our that's a banner, it's our ribbon, and it will go on display in St. Joseph's when we have our meetings there with our banner. So we are delighted to have this